Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the webinar, Systems Thinking to Advance People-Centered Justice. This is the third installment of the World Justice Challenge, A Year of Impact webinar series, where today we will be hearing from an incredible group of human rights defenders from Cambodia on how they are working to advance people-centered justice in their country. My name is Lauren Kitts. I am the Director of Engagement at the World Justice Project, or WJP. Since 2019, WJP has operated a global prize competition called the World Justice Challenge, which recognizes impactful and innovative initiatives that strengthen the rule of law. Last year's competition culminated in summer 2022, where WJP awarded 5 winning projects an unrestricted cash prize to acknowledge their excellence in advancing rule of law solutions. So 1 year later, we decided to hold a series of webinars to catch up with these winning organizations and see how their work has evolved over the past year and what they're continuing to do to strengthen the rule of law. So today we are welcoming Cambodia Bridges to Justice and their partners, the Cambodian Human Rights and Development Association, Legal Aid Cambodia, the Community Legal Education Center, and the Center for Law and Transformative Change. Last year, Cambodia Bridges to Justice was the winner of the World Justice Challenge Access to Justice Prize for their work providing tireless frontline legal aid in Cambodia's appeals courts. So in just a moment, I will turn it over to those colleagues to hear what this work looks like today and what Cambodia Bridges to Justice and their partners are doing to move forward in their country's challenging rule of law environment. Just 2 things to note before we start. I want to make sure everyone knows how to use the interpretation function in Zoom because this webinar will be conducted both in English and Khmer. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an icon that looks like a little globe, and underneath it says interpretation. If you click on it, a menu will come up and you can select your language, either English or Khmer. If you don't make a selection, you will not hear the interpreter, you will only hear the speaker. So I encourage everyone to just find the interpretation function and select your language now. And then for questions, so after the presentation, we will save time for Q&A. So to ask a question, please use the Q&A function on your screen. It's also at the bottom, and submit your question in writing. And we will answer it at the end. Okay, great. So I will now turn it over to Francis James, who is the founder of Legal Aid Cambodia and a board member of International Bridges to Justice, and he will moderate the discussion. So Francis, over to you.
Great, thank you, Lauren. And good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and your respective parts of the world. And welcome to this really exciting webinar on systems thinking to advance people-centered justice. A big thank you to the World Justice Project and to our incredible panelists on what should be a really exciting and invigorating discussion today. My name is Francis James. I am currently the resident representative for the United Nations Development Program in Gabon in Central Africa, quite far from Cambodia. But in a previous life, about 30 years ago, close to over 30 years ago, I worked in Cambodia and founded the Cambodian Defenders Project, which trained the first 25 Cambodian defenders, of which Uk Van Deth, who will be our first speaker, was one of the defenders. And I also had the good fortune of founding Legal Aid of Cambodia. As Lauren mentioned, I'm a board member of International Bridges to Justice, and also Karen Che, who's the founder and CEO of IBJ, also worked with me to help train the first contingent of young lawyers and defenders in the Cambodian Defenders Project many years ago, close to 30 years ago. We worked very, very closely with ADHOC, the Cambodian Human Rights Association, and Legal Aid of Cambodia, And I'm very happy to see that both of them are here, along with the Community Legal Education Center and the Center for Law and Transformative Change. So the topic today is talking about advancing people-centered justice and a kind of a systems approach. A couple ideas just to keep in mind is, what are the challenges? What are the challenges facing? We know that Cambodia just recently had an context. The political space is rather restricted. What is the impact of organizations such as LAC, such as CLEC, and Center for Transformative Change? What can they do to be more effective, to be more impactful, and how are they building partnerships? So without further ado, let's go straight to our first speaker, who is Ok Van Det, who has been heading the Cambodian Bridges to Justice. Over to you, Ok Van Det, for your opening comments. We're going to go one by one through the 4 different organizations. They're all going to speak for 5, 6, 7 minutes or so. And then we're going to close with some closing comments by Erica. We're going to go into some Q&A. So really looking forward to questions from the field that certainly will be probing, and that hopefully our panelists and others can answer. And then we'll close with some closing remarks by Lauren, who opened up this session. So I hope that makes sense. I'm really looking forward to this great hour of conversation. Over to you, my brother and my friend, Ok Van Det.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Please go ahead, Mr. Van Det. Please unmute your microphone and start speaking. Mr. Van Det, your microphone. There you go. Your microphone is on. Please start speaking.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Again, yes. Chim rip số chim chim Ok Van Det chim chim mấy vị cà phê cái đấy, nên chim yêu ông ca spin cho thị thôn ở Campuchia. Hay chỉ ông ca mối đại miền Tây cả cam ông ca bắt đầu chung người phải chấp bập đo di chuyển Campuchia nó không được công tuần. Hay chim miền Nam Côn yang cái lấy đây là World Justice Project những ban đo pin được nguồn. Pin được nguồn việc ban thôi khi nhom hay nông sản cái khi nhom lớn thực chất nè. Hay thành như thà dương thất nó không đầm nói chút rồi cả tụi banยุติธรรมទាំងអស់គ្នានៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាក៏យើងមានការរីកចម្រើនដែលគួរឲ្យកត់សម្គាល់ហើយចាប់តាំងពីពេលដែលខ្ញុំបានទទួលពានរង្វាន់របស់ World Justice Project ក្នុងការលើកកម្ពស់សិទ្ធិទទួលបានយុត្តិធម៌នៅក្នុងសាលាឧទ្ធរណ៍ខ្ញុំចង់ឆ្លុះបញ្ចាំងប្រាប់អ្នកអំពីរឿងរ៉ាវមួយចំនួនដែលយើងបានធ្វើដំណើរដល់វែងឆ្ងាយនៅក្នុងការធ្វើដំណើរនេះគឺវាជាដំណើរមួយដ៏សែនលំបាកប៉ុន្តែយើងបានព្យាយាមបំពេញវាជាដំណើររបស់អង្គការស្ពានយុត្តិធម៌នៅកម្ពុជាក៏ដូចជាដំណើរផ្ទាល់ខ្លួនរបស់ខ្ញុំក្នុងនាមអ្នកការពារក្តីអ្វីដែលអ្នកបានឃើញនៅពេលនេះគឺវាខុសប្លែកណាពីអ្វីដែលយើងទើបបញ្ចប់ផ្ដើមក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាអ្នកដឹងហើយថាប្រទេសខ្ញុំនេះត្រូវបានបំផ្លិចបំផ្លាញដោយពួកខ្មែរក្រហមយើងគ្មានសាកលវិទ្យាល័យគ្មានសាលាច្បាប់គ្មានចៅក្រមឬមេធាវីឬអ្នកការពារក្តីទេហើយអង្គការសហប្រជាជាតិបានមកប្រទេសកម្ពុជានៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ1991នៅពេលនោះខ្ញុំក្នុងឋានៈខ្ញុំធ្វើជាប៉ូលីសខ្ញុំមានការរំជួលចិត្តយ៉ាងខ្លាំង ចំពោះភាពអយុត្តិធម៌នៅក្នុងសង្គមដែលខ្ញុំបានឃើញជារៀងរាល់ថ្ងៃប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំមានការអស់សង្ឃឹមយ៉ាងខ្លាំងដោយសារខ្ញុំគិតថាអ្វីដែលការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរនោះវាជាធំធេងណាស់សម្រាប់ខ្ញុំតែខ្ញុំមិនអាចធ្វើទៅបាននៅឆ្នាំ1994នៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំបានជួប Currency ហើយនិង Francis គឺនៅពេលនោះ Karen មិនត្រឹមតែបានបង្កើតស្ពានយុត្តិធម៌សម្រាប់អន្តរជាតិនោះទេប៉ុន្តែគាត់បានទាំងបង្កើតអង្គការស្ពានយុត្តិធម៌នៅកម្ពុជាហើយ Karen និង Francis បានបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលខ្ញុំនិងមនុស្ស24នាក់ទៀតណាឲ្យក្លាយជាមេធាវីជំនឿផ្នែកច្បាប់ដំបូងគេនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាជាលើកដំបូងខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍ថាខ្ញុំអាចធ្វើមួយដើម្បីប្រឆាំងនឹងភាពអយុត្តិធម៌ដែលខ្ញុំបានជួបខ្ញុំមានមោទនភាពដែលខ្ញុំបានធ្វើការនៅក្រឡៃជំនឿផ្នែកច្បាប់ដំបូងគេនៅក្នុងបន្ទប់សាវនាការតុលាការខេត្តកណ្ដាលក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជានាឆ្នាំ1997នៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំដឹងថា Karen បានបង្កើត International Bridge to Justice នៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2000ដែលផ្ដោតទិសដៅតែមួយគត់ដើម្បីការពារសិទ្ធិរបស់បុគ្គលដែលត្រូវបានចោទប្រកាន់ពីបទឧក្រិដ្ឋខ្ញុំពិតជារំភើបនិងលើកទឹកចិត្តខ្ញុំបានឃើញចក្ខុវិស័យរបស់នាងលេចចេញជារូបរាងនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាហើយខ្ញុំដឹងថាជាតម្រូវការចាំបាច់សម្រាប់កិច្ចការពារផ្លូវច្បាប់ចំពោះជនចោទនឹងការពីការធ្វើទរណកម្មនិងការរំលោភបំពាននៅក្នុងប្រទេសរបស់ខ្ញុំបានសម្រេចសេចក្តីប្រាថ្នារបស់ខ្ញុំនៅឆ្នាំ2005នៅពេលដែលសហការជាមួយ IBJ យើងបានចាប់ផ្ដើមបង្កើតកាល័យជំនឿផ្នែកច្បាប់នៅក្នុងខេត្តនានាក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាខ្ញុំចាំបានថាខ្ញុំបានចាប់ដៃជាមួយ Legal Aid of Cambodia ដើម្បីបង្កើតការិយាល័យជំនឿផ្នែកច្បាប់ដំបូងនៅក្នុងខេត្តរតនគិរីហើយក៏យើងបានចាប់ដៃជាបន្តជាមួយអង្គការ Click ជាមួយអង្គការ Ad Hoc និង Linkado ហើយយើងក៏បានទទួលជោគជ័យក្នុងការបង្កើតភាពជាដៃគូយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រជាមួយក្រសួងយុត្តិធម៌និងគណៈមេធាវីនៃប្រជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាដែលបានចុះអនុស្សរណៈយោគយល់ចំនួន2ដែលចុះហត្ថលេខាក្នុងឆ្នាំ2012និង2015កត្តានេះបានអនុញ្ញាតឲ្យយើងពង្រីកការិយាល័យជំនួយផ្នែកច្បាប់នៅក្នុងបន្ទប់សាវនាការក្នុងតុលាការខេត្តបន្ទាយមានជ័យបាត់ដំបងនិងកំពង់ធំក្រោយមកយើងបានពង្រីកទៅខេត្តផ្សេងៗទៀតបន្ទាប់ពីវិជ័យបានត្រូវចុះបញ្ជីជាផ្លូវការជាអង្គការក្រៅរដ្ឋាភិបាលនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2015ចាប់ពីពេលនោះមក CBJ បានបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលអ្នកការពារក្តីជាង700នាក់នៅកម្ពុជាយើងបានតំណាងស្របច្បាប់ជនជាប់ចោទពីបទឧក្រិដ្ឋចំនួន 12000 នាក់ដែលភាគច្រើនជាជនក្រីក្រក្នុងអំឡុងពេលនិងមុនពេលសវនកម្មដែលពួកគាត់មិនមានលទ្ធភាពរកមេធាវីតាមរយៈកម្មវិធីផ្សព្វផ្សាយការយល់ដឹងពីសិទ្ធិយើងបានអប់រំមនុស្សជាង5លាននាក់អំពីសិទ្ធិស្របច្បាប់របស់ពួកគេតាមរយៈព្រឹត្តិការណ៍យល់ដឹងអំពីសិទ្ធិមកទល់ពេលនេះ CBJ ត្រូវបានរៀបចំព្រឹត្តិការណ៍ទុកមូលជាង100នៅថ្នាក់ខេត្តនិងថ្នាក់ជាតិដែលប្រមុខដុំមន្ត្រីយុតិធម៌ជាង1700នាក់ទឹកមូលនេះហើយដែលជាការប្រមុខដុំភាគីពាក់ព័ន្ធផ្នែកយុតិធម៌សំខាន់ៗដូចជាចក្រមប្រញ្ញាប៉ូលីសនិងមន្ត្រីនគរបាលនិងមន្ត្រីពន្ធនាគារព្រមទាំងមេធាវីនៅអង្គការសង្គមស៊ីវិលបានផ្ដល់លទ្ធភាពឲ្យ CBJ តស៊ូមតិសម្រាប់កំណែតម្រង់នៅក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធយុតិធម៌នៃប្រទេសកម្ពុជាការងាររបស់យើងត្រូវបានអនុវត្តជាបន្តបន្ទាប់ដោយគិតជាប្រព័ន្ធបញ្ហាធំដែលខ្ញុំសង្កេតឃើញនៅក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធយុតិធម៌របស់យើងនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំធ្វើប៉ូលីសហាក់ដូចជាមិនអាចគ្រប់គ្រងបានទេបញ្ហាទាំងនេះទោះជាយ៉ាងណាក៏ដោយឥឡូវខ្ញុំដឹងថាភាពអយុត្តិធម៌ដែលយើងឃើញរាល់ថ្ងៃនៅក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធយុតិធម៌របស់ប្រទេសយើងគឺបានចង្អុលទៅប្រព័ន្ធមួយដែលមិនទាន់មានស្តង់ដារអន្តរជាតិនៅឡើយជាលទ្ធផលមានតែដំណោះស្រាយរួមមួយទេដែលអាចដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាប្រព័ន្ធនេះបានក្នុងនាម CBJ យើងយល់ថាយើងមិនអាចដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាតែម្នាក់ឯងទេយើងត្រូវការដៃគូសហការនោះហើយជាមូលហេតុដែលមានថ្ងៃនេះហើយយើងមានការចែករំលែកវេទិកានេះជាមួយដៃគូមួយចំនួនដែលយើងបានធ្វើដំណើររួមគ្នាអស់រយៈពេលជាច្រើនឆ្នាំដោយមានការគ្រប់គ្រងពី World Justice Challenge Award ដល់ CBJ យើងអាចសម្រេចបាននៅចំណុចសំខាន់ៗដូចខាងក្រោមទីមួយបញ្ចប់គម្រោងសាលាទររបស់យើងដែលផ្ដល់ជំនួយនិងតំណាងឲ្យសំណុំរឿងជាអធិភាពចំនួន61ដែលជ្រើសរើសដោយ OHCHR Cambodia និង CBJ ក្នុងឆ្នាំ2002ផ្ដល់តំណាងផ្នែកច្បាប់ដល់បុគ្គលដែលងាយរងគ្រោះជាង100នាក់បោះពុម្ពសិភៅណែនាំរបស់សាលាឧទ្ធរសម្រាប់មេធាវីបោះពុម្ពឯកសារគោលនយោបាយដែលមានចំណងធ្វើការពង្រឹងជំនួយផ្នែកច្បាប់នៅសាលាឧទ្ធរប្រ ទេសកម្ពុជាបញ្ហានេះនៅមិនទាន់ដោះស្រាយនៅឡើយទេយើងនៅតែមានអត្រាខ្ពស់អ្នកទោសក្នុងពន្ធនាគារ 345.9% មានន័យថាពន្ធនាគាររបស់យើងបច្ចុប្បន្នកំពុងផ្ទុកមនុស្សច្រើនជាង3ដងនៃចំនួនដែលគម្រោងនឹងបង្កើតទោះបីជាគណៈមេធាវីបានយកបន្ទប់ពិគ្រោះរបល់សម្រាប់មេធាវីចំនួនផ្ដាច់ច្បាប់នៅគ្រប់តុលាការក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាក៏ដោយមេធាវីចំនួន10ចំនួនគ្រាន់តែអន្តរាគមន៍នៅក្នុងដំណាក់កាលនៃការជំនុំជម្រះប៉ុណ្ណោះដោយសារឧបសគ្គធនធានយើងត្រូវបានគេបង្ខំឲ្យកាត់បន្ថយការសរសេរកម្មវិធីរបស់យើងហើយនឹងការឈានទៅដល់ការប៉ះពាល់ទៅដល់ការងាររបស់យើងយ៉ាងធ្ងន់ធ្ងរទោះជាណាក៏ដោយយើងនៅតែរក្សាភាពជាដៃគូជាយូរអង្វែងជាមួយភាគីពាក់ព័ន្ធសំខាន់នៅក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធយុតិធធម៌និងបណ្ដាញអ្នកការពាររបស់យើងដែលគ្របដណ្ដប់ទូទៅប្រទេសនៅតែបញ្ញាចិត្តក្នុងការធានាឲ្យមានលទ្ធភាពទទួលបានមេធាវីសម្រាប់ជនជាប់វិបត្តិកិច្ចឲ្យបានឆាប់យើងបានបង្កើតផែនទីនិងបង្ហាញគំរូសម្រាប់ជំនួយដៃប្រាប់ផ្នែកព្រំដែននៅកម្ពុជាយើងបានបោះជំហានទៅមុខយើងនៅតាមខេត្តតាមរយៈការងារដំបូងរបស់យើងមានអ្នកការពារដែលមានបទពិសោធន៍ដែលទទួលបានបទពិសោធន៍អនុវត្តជាច្រើនទសវត្សរ៍មកហើយដូច្នេះគេអាចណែនាំនិងបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលមេធាវីចំនួនក្រោយហើយមេធាវីរបស់យើងភាគច្រើនដែលបាននៅតាមខេត្តគឺនៅតែមានសមត្ថភាពចង់ចូលរួមចំណែកបន្ថែមដើម្បីបំពេញចន្លោះប្រហោងបច្ចុប្បន្នចំណេញផ្នែកច្បាប់និងទទួលបានការប្រឹក្សាជាមុនយុទ្ធសាស្ត្ររបស់យើងឆ្ពោះទៅរកមានជំហានសំខាន់ដូចខាងក្រោមទីមួយពង្រឹងភាពជាដៃគូរបស់យើងធ្វើឲ្យប្រសើរឡើងនៅកិច្ចសហប្រតិបត្តិការជាអ្នកពាក់ព័ន្ធក្នុងវិស័យយុទ្ធធម៌សំខាន់ដើម្បីប្រើប្រាស់ធនធានផ្លាស់ប្ដូរជំនាញនិងពង្រីកលទ្ធភាពនៃសេវាកម្មរបស់យើងទី2ពង្រឹងសមាគមសហគមន៍អ្នកការពារផ្ដល់ការបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលការកសាងសមត្ថភាពនិងណែនាំដល់មេធាវីក្មេងវ័យក្មេងនិងលើកទឹកចិត្តឲ្យមេធាវីកាន់តែច្រើនឡើងក្នុងការលើកយកសំណុំរឿងព្រមទាំងដើម្បីការពារជនក្រីក្រនិងជនពិការពង្រីកនិងបង្កើតការឡើងនៅក្នុងតំបន់ដែលមិនមានសេវាកម្មដើម្បីជាប្រយោជន៍ទៅដល់ប្រជាជននៅក្នុងតំបន់ដាច់ស្រយាលបង្កើតការតស៊ូប្រតិនិងការចូលរួមគោលនយោបាយប្រជុំតុមូលដើម្បីតស៊ូមតិសម្រាប់កំណែទម្រង់ប្រព័ន្ធយុតិធធម៌តាមដាននិងត្រួតពិនិត្យដែលជំរុញដោយទិន្នន័យការសម្របសម្រួលប្រមូលនិងវិភាគជាប្រព័ន្ធបង្កើនការយល់ដឹងជាសាធារណៈអំពីសារៈសំខាន់នៃជំនួយផ្នែកច្បាប់និងសិទ្ធិរបស់បុគ្គលអ្វីដែលយើងត្រូវការជាមួយនឹងការគ្រប់គ្រងនិងការផ្ដល់មូលនិធិរបស់អ្នក CBJ អាចធ្វើដូចខាងក្រោមទី1អនុវត្តកម្មវិធីកាតព្វកិច្ចមេធាវីដើម្បីផ្ដល់ការប្រឹក្សាឲ្យបានទាន់ពេលវេលាដល់ជនសង្ស័យនៅថ្នាក់ប៉ុស្តិ៍នគរបាលគ្រប់ខេត្តក្រុងផ្ដល់តំណែងផ្លូវច្បាប់ដល់ជនជាប់ចោទពន្ធនាគាររបស់អ្នកសម្រាប់បទមជ្ឈិមតែបច្ចុប្បន្នមិនត្រូវបានគ្របដណ្ដប់ដោយគម្រោងរបស់គណៈមេធាវីបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលគ្រូបង្គោលនៃជំនួយនៃមេធាវីជំនួយផ្នែកច្បាប់ក្នុងជំនាញជាក់ស្ដែងរួមទាំងជំនាញស៊ើបអង្កេតនិងរៀបចំសំណុំរឿងណែនាំគ្រូបង្គោលនៃមេធាវីជំនួយផ្នែកច្បាប់ដើម្បីធ្វើឲ្យប្រកបថាគុណភាពខ្ពស់នៃអ្នកការពារក្តីបន្តការប្រជុំតុមូលស្វែងរកយុត្តិធម៌នៅថ្នាក់ជាតិនិងថ្នាក់ខេត្តដើម្បីចូលរួមនិងអប់រំមន្ត្រីស្ការអំពីសិទ្ធិដំណើរការត្រឹមត្រូវនិងគោលនយោបាយនីតិរដ្ឋដល់កម្លាំងចិត្តដល់ក្រុមមេធាវីដែលខិតខំប្រឹងប្រែងដើម្បីបន្តសំណុំរឿងបណ្ដុះបន្តនៅក្នុងសាលាឧទ្ធរណ៍ចំនួន4នៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាផ្សព្វផ្សាយការយល់ដឹងអំពីសិទ្ធិសាធារណៈលើដំណើរការត្រឹមត្រូវរួមទាំងសិទ្ធិទទួលបានការប្រឹក្សាជាមុននិងដំណើរការបណ្ដឹងឧទ្ធរណ៍ព្រមទាំងរួមជាមួយសហការីរបស់ខ្ញុំនៅថ្ងៃនេះយើងកំពុងធ្វើការដើម្បីរក្សាក្តីសង្ឃឹមសម្រាប់នីតិរដ្ឋនៅកម្ពុជាយើងរួមគ្នាការពារវាព្រោះយើងមានបទពិសោធន៍តាំងពីយូរណាស់មកហើយអំពើអ្វីដែលកើតឡើងនៅពេលដែលយើងបោះបង់ចោលនីតិរដ្ឋក្នុងនាម CBJ យើងបដិញ្ញាបន្តដឹកនាំការផ្ដល់ជំនួយផ្នែកច្បាប់សម្រាប់សំណុំរឿងព្រំដែននៅកម្ពុជាមានរឿងជាច្រើនដែលយើងត្រូវធ្វើយើងត្រូវការការគ្រប់គ្រងពីអ្នកដើម្បីសម្រេចបាននៅលទ្ធភាពទទួលបានដំបូន្មានជាប្រព័ន្ធជាមុនសម្រាប់អ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអរគុណសម្រាប់ការស្ដាប់របស់លោក
Thank you, Okvendet. Thank you, Vendet and CBJ colleagues for your service. You know, I was struck by the photos that you had sent in the beginning where you had depictions of the Khmer Rouge and the destruction. And I've been really struck by how justice has come a long, long way. And yet we're still striving for international standards I think there's 345% capacity of prisons in Cambodia. I mean, that really struck me as an incredible number. But the battle continues. Thank you again for your service, and I'm sure we're going to come back to you with some questions. I think the partnership, particularly on the partnerships, I liked how you had that photo of the IBJ, the CBJ and LAC office, legal aid office in Ratanakiri, and love to hear more about that particular partnership. Let's move on to Mia Savat from the Cambodian Human Rights Group, one of the premier human rights groups working in a very, very challenging environment. Over to you, Savat.
Thank you, Francis. Do you hear me, Francis, and you see my presentation slide?
Yes, we see you and we hear you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. My presentation slide, I would like to present about the legal aid and protection from misappropriation of justice. We call a sort project LEAP. I would like to introduce you and everyone that is it is a project of a current project of the ad hoc, in among others projects that we operate in Cambodia. And you may know that this ad hoc have good cooperation with the CBJ since 2010. However, that from then that we still have, regard to the project to improve access to justice in Cambodia. My outline of the presentation, I would like to talking about the objective of the project problem statement, the result of project implementation, project outcomes, issues, challenge, lesson learned, and the next plan. The project of this, the objective of the project is to increase accountability with the Cambodian court system, to strengthen the right of human rights defenders to prevent further shrinking of civil space in Cambodia, access to justice for human rights defender and victim of land grabbing that will contribute to alleviating their situation by increasing protection. Last one is to strengthen their resilience and improve overall adherence to fair trial standard within the Cambodian judicial. The project problem statement. This project, we have attempt to address, regard to the issue and the problem that occur in Cambodia, regard to the human rights defenders, social activists, victims, and land grabbing that have been increasing targeted by authorities in Cambodia. Legal resource is minimal as a pre-trial detention is used as excessively and basically rights are denied to the accused. Many Cambodians remain likely unaware of the rights afforded to them under domestic and international law, which leads to the inability to exercise them and seek redress when they are applauded. human rights defender, social activists, victims of land grabbing are vulnerable to intimidation, threat, state-sanctioned violence, which all take a heavily psychological toll. Repression of these groups include through pretrial detention for extension period of time, threaten them and their family livelihood. This is the result of that our 2-year project's implementation. This project that focus on the monitoring about the courts of first instance in Cambodia, and this that achieve that many number of cases that we receive and we collected from our monitoring. In those cases, among 160 cases, among these cases that 33 verdicted were produced. 131 crime and misdemeanors is 35 cases. 50 political threats activists, 11 arbitrary arrests, 78 cases of human rights violation in Cambodia. 27 cases of land right disputes, 61 cases of women and children right abuse, and 55 a case of rapes. The project outcome. The project is attempt to address is to open civil space, enable freedom of expression, assembly, and association, and restore democracy in Cambodia. To pressure the government to fulfill their obligation and responsibilities of a signatory state to the treaties and convention in Cambodia. Make campaign against judicial misconduct in the enforcement of human rights and advocacy for law and judicial reform in Cambodia. The issue and challenge that we face during implementation of the project activity, provide legal aid, is still lack of mandatory cases, for example, like freedom of expression. A few courts of the first instance are still limited to access hearing and bring its material court monitoring form. Trainees, human rights, especially human rights defenders, are waiting for an opportunity to practice court monitoring. It's still difficult to access the courtroom. You may know that generally that the hearing is open for the public, but in Cambodia, the court of instance still restrict the public or the parties to access to the room court, and they require, to ask permission or do not allow some material, some such of that is still very difficult to the public. Lesson learned from the project implementation: trainees, especially human rights defender, be interested in new skill in technical court monitoring and report form. National internet gateways, in particularly, are willing to continue as a human rights defender to present and assist their communities. Strengthening staff capacity skill relate to an investigation, legal analysis, advocacy that can proceed to the project activity success. Documenting, monitoring, reporting activity play an indispensable role to bringing about the abuse to the attention of domestic and international stakeholders. It also assisting human rights defenders to feel supported and secure in their work. Sorry. Sorry, error with that. Yes, next plan. We committed to work together with the CBJ, IBJ, and other networks in Cambodia to improve and enhance legal and justice reform in Cambodia and the club to implement a joint project to protect fundamental freedoms and human rights defenders, to address the needs of the victim of torture in state and civilian custody, to provide legal aid and protect from misappropriate of the justice. And the last one is to promote and protect human rights in remote rural area of Cambodia. Thank you.
Thank you, Savat. Thank you for that great presentation. You know, I was struck by the types of cases that you've been dealing with, the land rights issues, the women and children. I mean, it seems to be the same issues that keep reoccurring, and then also the tightening of civil space. Hats off, really, and congratulations to yourself and your team for really fighting the good fight and keeping the faith and moving forward. It's I was particularly heartened to see the last slide of the partnerships. You know, this is really the theme that we're trying to get across here today in this webinar on partnerships and new ways of thinking and bridge building and such. So thank you again for that really great presentation. Let's move on to my good friend Runsaraj. Runsaraj is heading Legal Aid of Cambodia, an organization that very close to my heart, and I'm really eager to hear the latest update from my good friend. Sarai, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Francis James, that the former foundation of Legal Aid and the former board of Legal Aid of Cambodia, and currently you are the board of IBJ. I think it's good, and thank to World Justice Project for allow Legal Aid to be present today. And my topic today is on important time to reinvestment in legal aid for children. Before I start to detail, I would like to introduce about legal aid. Legal Aid of Cambodia was founded in 1995 to provide legal aid for political rights and human rights defender, and also for the poor people. Our vision is just and fair society where everyone enjoy equal right before the law. Our mission is to defend vulnerable people in Cambodia in society, to provide the rule of law through knowledge and capacity building in partnership with individual and community. Our current program, General Legal Aid, CSO Defender Program, Women Justice Program, Child Justice Program, and Land and Natural Resource Program. As you know that a Cambodian passed juvenile justice law in 2016, before the time the children was not properly protected under the law. The law given the right to the children to have family or lawyer from the first time until the end. This prevents the torture or forced confession. The implement of this law has been very weak and poor. And what Legal Aid do with this? We support the drafting of the law, the new law. We train 74 justice stakeholders in our provision of special legal aid in 2022. Our lawyer visit and defend 446 children held in detention to support their access to justice. Provide legal aid service. We collaboratively work with the social service and family at the local level as well as Ministry of at the national level. We also work collaboratively with IBJ, CBJ, ad hoc legal track for implementation of the project. IBJ, you know, used to fund legal aid of Cambodian legal aid of Cambodia. I think that 2005 or until 2010 or 11, I didn't remember well. That's a good. And now we are still work collaboratively with with the IBJ in terms of referring case to where that legal aid office is not located. For example, in IBJ have the office in Batimijan, legal aid in Cambodia don't have. When they have the case there, we refer the case to IBJ there. And what our challenge is that I think that our challenge is that what is a law is different and what happened in practice. Mean a law say different when practice is the other when say like this, but when practice say different, that is a challenge. The gap in the funding mean we must stop and start our activity, which may keeping the good staff and getting results difficult. Complicated donor process mean we cannot compete with the large international donor or organization or contracting firm. Donor period are short to make change in culture or do not match the time need to change the attitude. It's difficult to collaborate when we are all competing for fun. We trust directly our leadership and experience. We build partnership so that we can be independent. Longer term funding, which including fund for our operational need. Remove the barrier that prevent us from grant opportunity. Thank you so much and for your attention. And if you have questions, maybe we can answer later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarai. Thanks. You know, you said something about the law says something, but the reality says something else. And that's, I think it's a challenge worldwide. The other challenge that you mentioned was the funding and how the competition for limited resources and such. But when I look at some of the questions, you know, I noticed there's There's Chisu and Abdul Wadud. Chisu, I'm assuming is from Burma or Myanmar, and Abdul Wadud from Afghanistan. And I'm just wondering, what are some of the lessons learned from the organizations in Cambodia, and what can be transferred to other challenging environments such as Myanmar and Afghanistan as well? Because I'm a big proponent of South-South cooperation and really taking lessons from one country and seeing if they're transferable or not to others, but something to keep in mind. Thank you, Sarai. Thanks for that great presentation. Let's move to the Center for Law and Transformative Change, Kate Flower. Nice to meet you, Kate, and really looking forward to hearing some of your insights. Over to you.
Thank you, Francis. And I think that was a great segue, the South-South, into my presentation. So, Akunjaran. Last year, I was privileged to attend the World Justice Forum in a pro bono capacity for Cambodia Bridges to Justice. What we all agreed then, and is still true today, is that the justice gap requires action now. We know the fragility and the complexity of the rule of law. 30 years and $170 million worth of externally driven interventions, and the results for Cambodia are not so positive. In 2015, donors concluded that there was no government buy-in for justice reform in Cambodia, and they left. But we know operating in complex systems and fostering change is not a one-size-fits-all. It's about the values and the mindsets within a system that drive the thinking and therefore the change. The CLTC, systems change, starts with the leaders of Cambodia's civil society, especially the ones you're hearing today, in the communities that they serve. It is their resilience and their need to build agency that is our focus. We are in the process of understanding the needs of ordinary people across the whole of Cambodia, from the mountains of Mondulkiri through to the seas and the lakes of Koh Kong. It is a project financed completely by people, power, and trust. What we are learning is that over 80% of the people have had, and it is showing us where and how we need to focus our resources. So for us at CLTC, we're all about action. In February this year, with the Australian National University College of Law and 8 law and development students, who I've seen some here online, thank you. We sent 8 law and development students across different NGOs to immerse themselves in the practicalities of law and justice reform. It became an incredible opportunity to bring civil society together and reflect on the past 30 years of interventions. There are incredible stories held within this network that say there has been change. And we wanted to bring those stories to light. We wanted to examine them, and we wanted to work out what was needed for success in moving forward. These stories come together in our recently released report, Shaping Stronger Pathways to Justice in Cambodia. Now, if you read one case study from this report, I would encourage you to read the successful approach of Cambodian Centre for Human Rights. They are a prime example of data-driven policy change that is locally led, done over time, and has really weaved change into the fabric of the court's operating systems. But to derive the recommendations, which are up here on your screen, we worked for over 6 months with a series of in-person and online meetings with our legal aid networks. 4 of them are here today, 3 couldn't join because of the time. But listening to their call, these are their recommendations, what they need to build agency and continued strength in their programming. Look, I'm super mindful of the time, a little bit late, but if you want to jump into a deep dive on the report, we can create a separate platform for this. You can contact the WJP or me directly, it's not a problem. But where do we go from here? At the heart of change and at the heart of all of this are people. Incredibly brave people coming together to spark change. It requires interconnectedness and trust and a genuine shift of power towards localized solutions. We are all interconnected, but when designing programs, it is important to be reminded that different realities coexist not that far away from each other. So let's rethink our approach to unleash the potential of Cambodia's human rights defenders. Refocus. As Cambodia regroups after the elections of the weekend, listen to their calls for action. What do they need? And hear what they are saying. And above all, reinvest. But break this power imbalance. Reinvest directly with local leaders in a way that gives them agency over the decisions that impact their lives. And importantly, join the magic. Come and talk to me if you want to turn this hope for people-centered justice into action today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. And, you know, a couple of things come to mind. One, great to see the next gen of young lawyers come to Cambodia and really try to reinvigorate, rethink, and refocus, you know, some of the priorities and such. It's one of the things you mentioned was, you know, how to focus on civil society and make sure that they are agents of change. And it's their responsibility, I think you mentioned, and I agree, it certainly is, but it's also the responsibility of the current leadership. You know, some of us remember when Hun Sen first came to power and kind of imposed himself, but without getting into political debates, you know, it's a collective effort and it's a collective battle going forward. And I think it's really up to the people of Cambodia to implement this change and to listen, as you said, rightfully said, listen to the voices of the people and really tailor their responses accordingly. Speaking of tailored responses, Hun Chundi, tell us a bit about Community Legal Education Center, because I know you've been doing some amazing work. Over to you, Chundi.
Thank you, Francis. You are my old friend as well.
It's great to see you all. It's really great to see you all. I can't, the joy in my heart is really there. It's really coming out. Anyways, over to you, please.
So I started my career with the Legal Aid of Cambodia, where you worked with us at that time in 1997. And then building my capacity from Legal Aid of Cambodia, I can started a new challenging job at the Community Legal Education Center, CLEC, in 2004, where we took on the new initiative from USAID supporting strategic litigation. So where when I started the strategic litigation with CLEC in 2004. Does someone present my slides? I don't see my slides.
Sanjiwa, are you controlling? Are you being able to show the slides of Chundi's presentation? Over.
I wasn't prepared because I thought, Mr. Chundi, you are sharing. You said you will control it, so I wasn't prepared to do that, but I can try.
Okay, go ahead. You know, this you gotta love this technology. I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed that it's working across the world, from Cambodia to New York to Central Africa, many other places around the world. This is quite impressive. Go ahead, Chundi.
Okay, anyway, I will speak.
And then we'll catch up with your
I will speak without the slides.
Perfect.
So you know me already, Chundi, director of Community Legal Education Center. We work to build the legal empowerment of vulnerable communities who are affected by the investment, in particular, that use land and natural resources, and then the local communities who are depending on land and natural resources affects seriously. I can say that it's a serious violation of the rights of the community to land and natural resources, including the land tenure security in Cambodia as well. Like Sarai said earlier, that we have a good law, but we don't have a good enforcement of the law. So it's double standard in Cambodia, you know already about that, and we cannot depend on the court. The judicial system is influenced by the government, and things happen in the judicial system. So by this CLC to protect, to represent the community affected by such investment, we build the legal empowerment. It's kind of people-centered justice. We depend on the community. We strengthen the community so that they can lead their own advocacy to push for the recognition of their rights stipulated in the Constitution and many of Eleanor-related legal frameworks. So by this, we use we provide legal education, legal advocacy skill for the communities to equip with before they can go for their rights. We also build a community-based paralegal. We select key people, key activists, human rights defenders within the community to be the local resource person. So the paralegal can be a resource to support their community and also the neighboring communities as well. We also have lawyers to represent the community. Legal aid by CLC is the kind of strategic litigation. We take on cases that have public interest test, meaning affecting communities and large, and also affecting the policy as well, that we need to change the attitude, behavior of the government, and to make some improvement to the policy and law as well. Apart from the litigation, what we have done, we can do in the court, we also have other alternative approach, like the one that we cooperate with the NGO partners, in particular NGO from Cambodia, the umbrella NGOs, and other partners as well, to establish the platform, provincial, regional, and national platform, so that the communities can also bring their cases before the government and the private sector as well. We also establish a mechanism to solve the dispute in the alternative way, that we call it peace table. Peace table is a process to mediate, to conciliate a particular case with the presence of everyone involved, like it's like a court proceeding as well, so that all parties can discuss and accept option from the participant that can be reached, and if they reach the agreement in the peace table, they can sign and enforce it by the agreement of the parties. So all these are to promote the land and natural resource good governance, and to access the social justice and the inclusive development in Cambodia. So no one will be left behind, And by this, we can say that the CLC use legal and non-legal advocacy campaign so that we can bring all the benefits to the vulnerable communities. Doing that, as I have mentioned in CLEC's core activities in the earlier, that we provide legal empowerment, we support the participation, the support of the national and international networks. We do media campaign, we appeal to national and international communities for support. We file the case to everywhere that the products from the conflicting area brought to. For example, if the product from the land producing sugar that will be sold to the European countries, to the USA, so we will find out the investment chain like that, so that we can file the case against those that conspire to get the product from the conflicting area where they gain from the violation of the human rights. So we have a case study in Cambodia about such strategic litigation, legal and non-legal advocacy of CLEC in Sri Ambal. That is about 200 families struggle with Thai and Cambodian company granted with the economic land concession for sugar plantation, and also a number of buyers in the UK and America as well. We also pursue our advocacy to the everything but arm of the European Union. Yeah, it started in 2006, and the coalition of Cambodian NGOs and also national and international NGO, we have formed our group so that we have enough strength to do the advocacy. We filed that in the Cambodia Court and Cadastral Commission, but no response from those mechanisms. You know, they cannot respond to the community's complaint. So we pursue that to the investment chain, because the sugar case involved the Thai company. We filed a case for support from the Thai National Human Rights Commission, because the sugar was exported to the European countries through everything but arm of the EU. We filed a case to the EU. We filed a case to Bonsukro, the Association of Sugar Companies. We filed a case to the OECD, and also we filed a case to the UK court with support of our partners there. So then we reached a negotiation agreement. In 2015, we have an agreement that the company will provide it back 300 hectares of the land to the communities, but under the agreement of the government, we have to seek the agreement from the government as well, because the land owned by the state. And then the companies in England and America promised to provide monetary compensation to the community. So at last, in 2018, the government agreed to provide the 300 hectares to the families, and in 2023, 1.2 million US dollar were paid by the companies to the communities. It's the case study about our legal and non-legal advocacy approach of CLEC. So you can see this is addressed my speech to the ministerial committee, inter-ministerial committee, including George Edgar, you can see in the middle of the table, and His Excellency Chia Sapara, as the chair of the inter-ministry, to agree to provide land back to the communities. And it's as I said before, we also have the alternative approach that include the community engagement platform and the peace table. I have also mentioned that already, so I should pass it to the other slide. But before passing to the other slide, I just wanted to report that around 53 communities and around 49 cases were brought to this mechanism through this alternative approach, so that the people have the opportunity to bring their cases and to hear responses from the government. You can see in the pictures is about the peace table, that we have the community, we have the government to chair the event, we have the other party, NGOs to work together to provide support to the community, to provide resolution for the community. These pictures is about the regional advocacy conferences that you can see my picture in the middle, that I facilitated all the provincial governors to hear the community's concern issue and to respond to those concerns as well. And the below picture is indigenous community representative in Mandalgiri, that she went up to the stage and addressed to the panel of the governors, provincial governors. So about the cooperation with CBJ, Cambodian Bridges for Justice, we have worked together for many years due to our shared mission, our shared value, and such as under the support of the Ministry of Justice and the support of the UN human rights in Cambodia, we provide legal support to people. We provide input for the judicial reform. Yeah, you know, a lot of work that we can do together, that we did together with CBK, and we are about to work together again to implement a joint project that promote the fundamental freedom, and to protect them from exploitation, in particular in the form of land grabbing, so that the rural community can better have access to justice. And there we will do the peace table, and also we will do the strategic litigation as well in the project, and we expect that we will have reduced instances of land grabs and evictions in Cambodia. We expect to have the community rights, in particular the rights of the accused, are better respected. We will have more cases to be resolved under our alternative dispute resolution mechanism, the platform and the peace table, in addition to the litigation in court. And we expect that we will have the improvement on the legal environment for communities to challenge rural right violations. So it's a bit long, sorry. So I should finish now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chundi. And you know, I love the peace tables. I love the networking. I love the really effective communication, the photos, and the legal empowerment of a strong community. So kudos and continue this great work, both legally and other, you know, through other non-legal and non-legal ways. You know, I know we're over time, but I think it really behooves us just to give a little time and space to Karen Che, the founder and CEO of IBJ, for some closing reflections, some ideas, some observations on some of these great interventions by our colleagues and friends in Cambodia. Karen, over to you. And then we'll hand over to Lauren for some closing wrap up, and we'll take it from there. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you. Well, first, just allow me to express my gratitude and thanks to the World Justice Project. Lauren, this would not be happening right now, not only in terms of the cases that we were able to take on appeals. I think that you have brought us into some of the darkest corners when not only has your case you've been protected by a lawyer, and then they say, no, you go back in and you don't even see the light of day. Thank you so much for the support on behalf of CBJ, but also for allowing us this platform today for the Cambodian voices to be heard. I think that as I was listening and moved, as I think so many of you were, not only by Ok Bandeth from Cambodia Bridges of Justice, but Sabah, Run Sarai, Hun Chundi, and Kate Flowers. There is so much purpose, perseverance, and possibility for what we can all do together. I know we're pretty much out of time, so I just wanted to conclude with one note of, I think really hope when we talk about systems change beyond the numbers of having done 12,000 cases or 10 million advisement of rights, to just give some texture to what really happened. And if you really look at it, when we look at a shift from an existing equilibrium to a new one, we see that by what Bandeth, through his really decades of dedication, and then last decade with CBJ, of not only building the bridges with Cambodia Bridges of Justice, but also the way that he worked to ensure that there was system change has created a huge mind shift. And I have just quickly to tell you that I do remember being in Tak Kheo province with him and meeting with the judges and the prosecutors and the police. And one thing that really stood out is they were kind of joking, because when Bandeth came, as well as starting to be some of the first pro bono legal aid lawyers that they had there, where they weren't used to having lawyers, they also had a practice of torture as the cheapest form of investigation. And I remember the shift came because as they were sitting down talking with me, they sort of laughed and said, you know what, even if the lawyer from CBJ doesn't show up, we don't torture anymore because we know that he is coming. And I thought that this was amazing, because it wasn't just saying, we know a lawyer is going to be here, and if there's a lawyer there, we won't torture. It was really the anticipation that there was a system in place where if you had a lawyer at an early stage and they knew that they were coming, that would be a problem. And want to say really lift up not only CBJ, but Bandeth, who is one of the most humble, amazing transformational leaders that I know. So Bandeth said, please at least don't leave without also thanking the different people from our provinces and networks who have made this happen. So from Tak Kheo, Kosal, Preveng, Tarum, Ratchanakiri, Sari, Battambang, Kalyan, Kompong Tom, Prevu, Persat, Bul Chantal, and Bantiman Che, Kuntol. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the partners. And there's so much that we can do together. Really grateful too for hearing your remarks, Kate. And I think we always consider you a long-term, you've done so much with Cambodia Bridges of Justice. So thank you for your contributions, and very excited for all the contributions that you and all of us on this webinar can make together. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, and to all of our speakers for these incredible and informative presentations. You know, it's really clear that despite the challenging environment and limited resources, you are still finding entry points for reform. And in what limited civic space exists, you are occupying it and you're attempting to expand it. So, you know, really incredible presentations, and just thank you on behalf of WJP again for sharing that with us. Our time is up, so I really want to sincerely thank the partners, and for everyone watching. If you'd like to return to this webinar and if you'd like to share it, we will be posting it on WJP's website and YouTube channel so that it can live on beyond the audience here today. And I just, as I mentioned, this webinar is part of an ongoing series. And if you are interested in access to justice and legal aid, coming up on August 10th, we're going to be speaking with POS Foundation, an organization who is doing also incredible legal aid work with the prison population in Ghana. So really encourage everyone, if you're interested in this topic, to join us. That should also be a really excellent conversation as well. So with that, I just thank you again so much to our speakers and to our partners, and I will close us out. And thank you everyone again for joining. Take care.